Good morning. You're listening to the BLAINESWORLD Show, heard each week on Facebook, or actually seen on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on the actual theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce a long-time friend, and he is Bruce Lang. And Bruce, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching you today. So if you're watching Bruce, you can give a big wave. You want to wave to everybody? And that's the amazing Bruce Lang. And as you'll see, Bruce, when it comes to music, recording, a whole bunch of different stuff, Bruce is the man. And I've known Bruce ever since I've been in this area. And I should mention that since moving to the Blue Ridge Mountains from New York City in 1991, Bruce has been a busy musician playing guitar and upright bass, along with singing at many venues in the Asheville area. He also operates Big Creek Recording, a popular local recording studio, producing audio and video projects for many local artists. And that's where you are now. Is that correct, Bruce?
Where I am, my home away from home here, right next door to where we live.
And when you hear about the studio, you're going to be blown away, as I've been. It's just a fantastic place to check out. But before we do that, Bruce, let me just ask you, for the benefit of people who don't know you, is that you've been a musician most of your life?
Pretty much since I was a kid. It was always around me. You know, my mom was a singer, so she was always singing and rehearsing things, and older cousins that were musicians. So, and then I guess when saw the Beatles in 1964, so that would have put me at 8 years old. That kind of turned a corner. My brother and I said, well, let's do that. And we started a band the next day.
At 8 years old? My goodness.
8 years old.
What was the name of the band?
The Barracudas.
Was it really? Now, this would be cool, do we have a recording of the Barracudas?
No, we don't. We actually had business cards made up. We were serious. we learned, we started the band, but we didn't have any instruments. So there was some construction going on in our yard, so I took a little square piece of wood and connected a stick to it, and I remember spray painting some black lines on it to look like guitar strings. And my brother had a coffee can and a bushel basket, and that was his drum set. And we learned, I think, to sing like "She Loves You" or something, learn the words. But the most important thing was, if you remember the early Beatles,
Right.
they used to have that synchronized bow they would do at the end of every song. And we learned the Beatles bow. I said, okay, now we got to learn a song. But then it was good, because the next Christmas I got a real guitar. It was a plastic guitar, but it was a guitar. And then the following one, I got a wooden one, and then eventually an electric one. And so it's
Is your brother still around?
he is, and he's still very active musically.
Because, yeah, that's right. I've seen you play with him sometimes, or some of the
Yeah,
recordings.
he's up in New York. So we were always in bands our whole life until I moved down here, which was 31 years ago.
Well, I want to
But
give you a
he's
challenge. I want to give you a challenge, Bruce.
Sure.
Put you on the spot, and I've mentioned this to people that saw it in other places as well. I may have told you this, but I want to do a fundraiser, and everybody would do their very first gig or the very first performance. So even though you don't have a recording when you and your brother played at 8 or 9, wouldn't that be cool if we could do a recording now and have you record your very first song?
It would be. It was a concert, actually. We charged 5 cents a piece.
Did you
And
really?
we had our neighbors, and our friends, and come in, and we had seats, and we had a guitar player, the other guy, Frankie. His sister had a flashlight in the back of the room, and that was our light show. So,
Wait, how old were you?
well, I was probably 8 or 9, I guess. Yeah.
And do you still have the first dollar you have made, or I don't see it in the studio? You didn't frame
No,
it, or first nickel?
I think we reinvested it in the business,
Oh,
probably.
is that too cool? So you're a kid, 8, 9, 10, whatever, playing. When did you form your first band?
Well, that was a little band we had. We
Right.
would play, things, and mainly thing we would do would be go Christmas caroling. We learned how to sing 3-part harmony of Christmas songs. The three of us would go around on Christmas Eve to the neighbor's house and sing, and we get some tips, and we'd give it back to the church. I remember we were so proud of ourselves, patting ourselves on the back, and then but then when I got into school, I started thinking about joining a garage band, which I did, playing the electric bass. I borrowed my cousin's electric bass and joined a garage band. And
What was the name of that band?
The day before.
And
Actually, I have a photo of me playing bass in that band.
how long did
And
they how long did that last?
um, probably a year or so. And then I heard about another band a couple of garages down the road that were better. So I quit that band and joined them. And we kind of just moved on and it went from there. And I got my brother involved. He actually came a little late, my older brother, but he came a little later to me playing. But wanted to get him involved in the bands. And a big venue for us was doing church dances in the New York area in Queens. That would be you do a battle of the bands they would have, and all these local bands would get together. And if you were selected, you get to play one of the dances. And
How
it's
many
quite
bands? Yeah, how many bands have you? How many bands have you been in? Ballpark.
not that many bands probably because it was different phases. That was like the rock and roll band playing for that kind of thing and trying doing the Beatles songs and covers like that. And whatever was popular, Creedence Clearwater, the early '60s music. And then it evolved on to playing when I got into high school. In the middle of high school, I really started listening. I wanted to learn how to play the upright bass, so I joined the orchestra, where they let you have a bass and they actually let you take it home sometimes. So I learned how to read music and play in the school band and school orchestra, and then got into jazz. Somebody turned me on to jazz. I heard a record at somebody's house, and then really started falling in love with that style of music. And luckily, at that point, which was like when I was getting out of high school, '74. You could go into Manhattan to small clubs and see
Right.
Charles Mingus and Sonny Rollins and Thelonious Monk and Bill Evans. And I actually got to see a lot of those people playing. And seeing that music live was a real eye opener. I mean, you could hear the records, but when you see them performing it live, and if you got to talk to any of those guys, they were great. I mean, they were always so accommodating and give you whatever inspiration you needed.
How did you get into country western?
Well, it was funny because we were playing the jazz, and there really was not much work to be had doing that. I came across a mandolin the one I still play now regularly, and started listening to Bob Wills music. Somebody turned me on to Bob Wills and Western swing music. So we found another guy who liked that, a steel guitar player and a fiddle player, and we put together a little band. So this is getting into the late '70s, and really incredibly at the same time, John Travolta did that movie Urban Cowboy.
Right.
And New York City, the club scene was kind of struggling, at the time, as a lot of other businesses were at that time in New York in the '70s. You can see some of those old movies like Taxi Driver, and that's a Manhattan I remember growing up in, pretty funky. But these all of a sudden these honky tonks opened up with Urban Cowboys lined up, the Lone Star Cafe, City Limits, and we had a great dance following, which was really fun. And we played a lot of the kind of country you can improvise a lot on. So, which was kind of tied in with the jazz stuff we enjoyed so much. Because basically a lot of that Western swing was just jazz with fiddles and mandolins and pedal steels. And it was great. So we did that for pretty much the '80s. The name of the band was the Dixie Doughboys. And we had some real great times playing around New York. And I was living in Connecticut pretty much for the '80s. Not far up in Connecticut, in Stamford. But one of the highlights of that group was we were playing on 1982 at City Limits on 7th Avenue and 10th Street. And my brother's playing the drums. I'm playing bass, or I think, yes, playing bass that night. And he's going, psst, psst, is that Willie Nelson? And on the dance floor was Willie Nelson and Amy Irving doing the
Okay.
Cotton Eye Joe. And we were like, talk about a surreal moment, because that movie had just come out.
One of my favorite movies. I love the movie.
Honeysuckle Rose.
Yeah,
I think
I
they might
loved
even
it.
change the name of the movie to On the Road Again because
Yeah.
the song was so popular. But there they were dancing. And so I walked over to him on the break and said, Willie, would you like to sing? He said, sure, I'd love to.
Oh,
And
really? Oh, too
so
cool.
my lead singer gave him his acoustic guitar, and we like just said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get a friend up to sit in. And Willie Nelson, they were, what? And people just crowded around the stage, and he sang for an hour with us, and we knew his songs, and he heard what we were doing, so he was doing a lot of these old Western swing songs because he grew up in Texas, and that was his music growing up.
But I'll put you on the spot, Bruce. Where's the YouTube clip of that?
I have a couple of photos
Oh,
of it.
okay, cool. But no
I do have
YouTube
them, and
clip.
I actually there's actually an audio recording of it. I put together a little YouTube. If you go to my YouTube channel,
Too
which is
cool.
Bruce Lang, I have a video I made with some of the still photos from that night and from other nights at the same club with a couple of swing songs that he played on. And it was, the amazing thing is you look at the pictures and the people are all crowded in front of the stage and just watching or dancing. And if I was thinking if that happened today, everybody would have their phones out
Yeah.
videoing. And I bet you it would have changed the whole atmosphere. I bet you Willie would have been like, well, this is it's a show, I feel like, it's kind of, yeah, should be getting paid or something like that. He might have just felt a little different, but he was there in the moment and he was having a good time.
Let me
So,
ask you, in terms of the music you played, then do you have a favorite style of music? You mentioned country western, jazz, you've done a whole bunch of different stuff. Do you have a favorite?
I kind of put them all in the cart as I'm going along, the Beatles songs, the country music, the jazz, and just, mash it all together. I mean, it's the styles. You can take a Beatles song and do it as a jazz song. I kind of like doing them as close to the originals as I can because of the nostalgia attached to it. People like to hear it that way, and it's kind of nice because the gigs I have nowadays that I'm doing, I can do that. Combine, I can do a Beatles song, do a Frank Sinatra song, do a Willie Nelson song, and it's because you look around the room, say, I bet you he would like, he would like On the Road Again, or I bet you he would like Moon River, So it's I'm pretty good at that. I've gotten good at seeing people and figuring out what they like, and I ask them, I encourage them to tell me what they want to hear, which is nice.
Well, one of my favorite Bruce Lang songs, I guess, or not songs, things you've done, is I know you put together you put together a couple of CDs, but the one CD you put together, you have this eclectic range of music, and it's so cool to listen to. You have a whole bunch of different kinds of songs. And it's just every so often I just get a kick out of listening to it.
I'm not sure which one that is because I'm always making CDs,
I know,
going to
no,
the
I forgot the
studio.
name of it, but you had,
Requests or more requests, one of
yeah,
those.
that was that, and then you also have the Christmas one too. I love that as well.
Hmm.
But let me ask you that another thing that always amazed me about you, Bruce, is the fact that you play more than one instrument. Ballpark, how many instruments do you play?
Bass, upright bass, electric bass, guitar, and mandolin are my three main instruments. Those instruments I feel I can go out and do a gig live on, and pretty well honed in on those. In the studio, I get to play with a lot of
Right,
other things, which is
that's what I
fun
love.
because
Yeah,
I could play a piano, take it apart slowly, do a million takes, or slow the speed down of the recording, or use all those tricks, or drums. I could do the same thing. I could figure out. But if I really want to get a top notch thing, I have so many good friends here in Asheville that I can hire to come in and play, which is great because certain instruments. One instrument that I always loved playing the Western swing music was a pedal steel guitar.
right.
I just thought it was the most beautiful sounding instrument, and I actually found one locally. Every time I would see one for sale on Craigslist or eBay, I would call my steel buddies up and say, "Is this a good one?" Oh, those have a lot of mechanical problems. And I finally found a local one that was good, and I got it. And my God, this thing is hard. Since I got it around the same time as I started doing the video in the studio and trying to increase my skills and knowledge of that. And so that's my project still to work on, but it's sitting here.
Well, and also you've got in terms of things you mentioned that you're good in. There's also the kazoo.
The
You can
kazoo.
kazoo as well. But let me ask you, in terms of picking up these instruments. So, how do you pick it up on your own, or study it, or take lessons, or YouTube? How do you pick up this stuff?
Like in the bass, I did get a few instructions from the music teachers in school, which wasn't much, in high school and junior high school, teaching you how to read whatever notes were there on the page. When I got out of high school, or no, actually, when I was still in high school, my brother belonged to community college, Queensborough Community College, and they had a band and orchestra, and they allow people to come play, local people, to community orchestra. So that was a good experience because there was a conductor I remember who really, like, I would ask him after rehearsals, "Can you work with me on this song?" And he would show me how it went. And when they did their concerts, they'd bring in these ringers, and this guy standing next to you, he's like reading the paper and just playing the music, some Beethoven, and they were old hats at it, so you learn from them. And but I didn't study much. I took some piano lessons as a kid and never really stuck with it because hey, I wanted to be in the Beatles, and I wish I would have now because better skills.
But that segues into what we'll be talking about next, because the thing, again, that's one of the many things that impresses me about you, Bruce, is the fact that you can kind of study something and pick it up and then all of a sudden run with it, and it's just incredible. And that kind of let's talk a little bit about then where you are now at your recording studio, and what gave you the idea of starting a Big Creek recording studio? What gave you that idea?
When we were in New York in that band I was talking about, the Western Swing Band, we had one fellow who used to love our band. He would come dancing all the time in Manhattan's mainly. And he said, listen, I got a recording studio. You guys got to come record. And I was kind of blowing him off a little bit. And he finally said, well, listen, I'm going to hire you to play a party in my studio. And he gave us a decent amount of money, and we would come into the studio and play. And we showed up. It was in the middle of Times Square. It was right on 48th Street and Broadway. And it was like on the 7th floor, 8th floor, 9th floor. He had several floors of rooms. And I walked in got off the elevator, and there's like platinum records. One time I went up to do some recording there, and I saw Diana Ross standing by the elevator. I said, oh, this is a serious studio. So he would let us use the studio. We did the party and recorded it live. So we had hours of recordings of that. And he would let us come in and edit it and fix solos and overdub stuff whenever the studio wasn't being used. So I fell in love with that. So that was in 1989, 1990. And then 91, I moved down here. So no more recording studio. And then I was talking to my buddy in the band, Fooch. He was a computer whiz with Mac computers. And Colleen happened to have a Mac. He said, hey, you can record on a Macintosh now. There's some good software you could do that. So I looked into it and upgraded our computer a little bit and started doing it in our house, which is right next door. Small house, set up a little area to record in, and then finally said, this is pretty good. And people were hearing my little recording saying, what studio did you do that in? And I said, well, I guess mine, And so invested a few $1,000s into some decent microphones and equipment and started doing it. And then about 9 years ago, I guess 10 years ago, this house where I am now, the studio, became available. A fellow passed away who lived here, our neighbor, great neighbor, and they sold it to us. So Colleen, my wife Colleen, who loves designing, she took architecture in her Georgia Tech days. She helped me design it into a recording studio. And I called my buddy up in New York. He gave me all kinds of great advice about how to make the room sound good and how not to spend too much money and to keep it on a money-making basis. And it's been worked out great. We did a lot of stuff right away, got it sounding good, and I keep adding to it. And the really nice thing is having it right next door. It's very clear when I'm working, and I could keep things ongoing. So it's.
Where'd you come up with the name Big Creek Recording
Well,
Studio?
the river, we're on the Dillingham Creek here, which just below us it merges with the Poverty Branch and the Paint Fork and becomes the Ivy River, which is a more substantial river that ends up at the French Broad in Marshall, I believe. But our neighbors, who lifelong residents of Barnardsville, told us the old timers would call it the Big Creek. So I said, I kind of like that name. And then our initials, B and C, Bruce and Colleen, Big Creek. So we just went with that.
Because looking at the studio, I have to tell you, I'm a little disappointed. She mentioned before about Diana Ross and other people, and your platinum records. And I'm surprised I don't see my picture on the wall there, because I had the honor of recording a couple things at your place as well. And we'll talk about that off the air. But that'd be kind of a cool thing that you have a wall of fame or something that people.
I do have of recording projects that have been done out here in the lounge. Really? I do have some. Do you want to take a little look around the studio here? I could.
Yeah, it blows me away the very first time I saw it. But yeah, can you give us a tour of the studio?
Sure. So this is the main room. This is what I see looking out here from my seat here in the control room, looking through the glass, and you can see that pedal steel wanting to be played. Got a little keyboard. To the right there is the drum room where I have a set of drums set up. And you can see those floors are great, nice pine floors, which really sound good. And the B-board, which was in most of the original construction, gives a nice acoustic sound, which we had to treat some. And then if I go to this camera here, this is looking back towards me. Here I am in the control room, and you can see the drum room a little better there, and it shows it shows pretty much the whole space there. So you got that, and back home again.
So now, which is great. So people can come to record at your place. Is that correct?
Yes,
And you've
yes, I
had
love having
how
people come
many
in.
people can record at one time?
Um, I could get a good band in here. I've had some rock and roll bands. I don't have a full size grand piano, which gives you a little more room, but I have wonderful piano sound, which I really worked on with some samples of real pianos. It sounds great, and I could fit a good 5, 6 piece band in here. You know, the drummer has his own space in the drum room there, and I could always go into the lounge if we needed to get some more space. You know, there might, and with the cameras and everything, you could have visuals, which has really worked out well too.
And we'll talk about that in a second, but talk a little bit about then, Bruce, some of the recording kinds of projects you do. So if somebody's interested in recording, what can you do for them?
Well, a lot of times what I get is, which I hoped for, which I kind of set up my setup for. You know, it's not a huge space. But it's perfect for what I'm doing because somebody will come in, say a singer-songwriter who played guitar and sang, they'll come in, and I can accompany them on upright bass or on another guitar, on mandolin, you know, some basic keyboard stuff I could do, and it's that's one of the main projects to do is helping produce people's recordings. Other things I've done have had full bands come in, and just they knew what they wanted to do. They were well rehearsed, and they did their recordings, and we did a multi-track recording, mixed it down, some of it live, some of it with overdub vocals, which is kind of common. But I'm open to whichever way people want to record. You know, I've had some old-time swing bands and old-time string bands, you know, kind of bluegrass music, which, you know, you're going to play that live. It's like sitting on the front porch, which is nice. Actually, the drum room used to be a front porch, so that really works out.
We'll talk about it in terms of a singer-songwriter, so that, you know, there are a lot of people write songs, there are a lot of singers as well. And so when in the process should they record it? You know, right away or wait for a while, or when does the recording come in?
Well, then, you know, the nice thing about the multi-track is if they know the tempo, they know the song, you can get it going. Like they can come in, play their basic track, you would call it. I would accompany them or overdub it, you know, play it upon listening. But they could always come back and do it again. You know, if they said, "Oh, I think I could do that song better now," but the other parts are still intact. So, you know, the recording is all non-destructive. So there's plenty of hard drive space to save everything you do, which is good. So, yeah, there's very many different methods of doing it. You know, piece by piece or all live.
Because another cool thing you can do for people too, right? You can do just a recording, but you can also now have video capability as well.
Yeah, I encourage that. That's something I really have worked on doing. You know, it started out just as promotional. I would have somebody maybe doing their final vocal on a song and put a camera up, and started really enjoying doing that. And said, well, let me record the whole process. And I have multiple cameras and the ability to kind of record it and just let it go without disturbing, you know, the musicianship, letting them play. And then just because there's so much you could do in post-production as far as piecing things together. So yeah, that's been great. And, you know, people want videos now. You know, having a YouTube channel like myself, it's like having your own TV station in a way. You know, you go through that too. It's
Well, I was going to say, what's really cool about it is that so they can record their song, but at the same time have their own YouTube clip of it, right?
Sure.
It's
I have a
great.
green screen capabilities, which we used when you did your stuff over here, where
Right.
you could change your background. We put you on a stage somewhere, and it's really one project I really enjoyed. I'm kind of excited about. I did on my last CD I recorded called More Requests. I did the Don McLean song Vincent,
Right.
you know, Starry Starry Night, and I recorded that, and I realized all the lyrics so beautiful. Each one referred to one of his paintings, so I kind of searched and found copies of his artwork, put it behind the video, and that was really fun to put. You know, I played different instruments, mandolin, and I played a bowed upright bass on that, which I love doing, and some keyboard. But I put that up on YouTube, and for some reason, somebody in the Philippines saw it, really liked it, and started sharing it. And I looked today, I had like 8.7 thousand views of that. They keep seeing it and sharing it and liking it. And it's like, I mean, to me, that's like, viral. I mean, I know the numbers like Justin Bieber, the millions. But to me, 8,000 people seeing
Right.
that, it's like, hey, that's great.
Well, talk about another project you did, Bruce. I don't know if you did it for me, but maybe you did. And it kind of, I think, really shows some of your capabilities. And remember, you did as a favor for me. I asked you to record what I call, arguably the greatest rock song of all time. Okay, and you were so nice about it because I asked you just to kind of record it, and I put it in my blog and put it out there. But you went above and beyond, and talk a little bit about the process because I think it shows what you do for not only me, but you can do for anybody.
It really was. It was fun. And it was. I love dissecting songs. So I got the original track of the Turtles and listened to it. Said, okay, this is what the guitar part is doing, and try to figure out this is what this is doing. The harmonies, the horns come in here. There's an organ. There's a clarinet or oboe, right? And I said that sounds kind of like East Indian. And I put a little in the video. I put a snake charmer playing.
The best, right?
That's a great thing about YouTube. You go there, give me a video of snake charmer. Boom, there it is. Do you want it with and it had it with actually in front of a green screen, so
Right,
I was
right.
able to put it wherever I wanted. But that was, and what's funny about that song, I play it, and people smile and sing along when they hear that song. It's just one of those tunes. It puts people in a good mood. But let's go look at the. So this was the track here that I recorded. And go back to the beginning. So this is when I record. This is my mixer window. It's a virtual mixer. I have a device here that lets me control the faders without using the mouse. And then the other window that you would use would be the edit window, which is all of the parts. And you can see this is an amplifier, a bass, the drums. Actually, I have a video track in there too. I figured that'd be fun to look at that. But if I go to back to the mix window, just play it from the beginning. I think this should be coming through pretty good.
I heard it before. Yeah, perfect.
Imagine me and you, I do. I think about you day and night.
And that's the video of the recording. The actual recording too. I did it as I was recording it, which was fun.
But wait until people see this. Bruce, can you blow up the video to show the whole screen?
And you say you belong to me, and ease my mind. Imagine how the world would
Perfect,
be
yeah.
so very fine, so happy together. I can see
I'm wearing the same shirt. I do have other shirts.
for all my
It's not my uniform.
Now, who's that drummer?
baby, the skies will be blue for all my life. Me and you.
And that guitar player? Boy, you got a lot of guys look like you, huh?
Toss the dice. It had to be the only
Those are my children, my instruments.
one for me. So happy together. I can't see me.
Wow, you got triplets? That's, I didn't-
I'm working on cloning here.
yeah, I see it.
Baby, the skies will be blue for all my life. Me and you and you.
There.
How they toss
Is that your cousin or who is that?
the only one for me.
Long lost relative.
And you for me. So happy together. Me and you and me. No matter how they toss the dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me. So happy together. So happy together.
That was fun.
Incredible. Let me ask you, in terms of putting that together, I want viewers to hopefully get this. About how long did that take you?
A few days.
Okay, come
Hello.
back. By the way, come
Oh,
back
let
to
me
me
stop it.
then.
It's
Show me.
Monday, and my good friend Blaine. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just come back so we can see you. I need to see
Oh,
the
okay.
mixer. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so you said it took you a couple days to put it together?
A few days. Yeah, I did. That was during when we were kind of locked down. I had a little time, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I
So my
want
gigs
people
disappeared for a few weeks.
but I want people to see that because it's just incredible what you can help people do to give like make it fun to see the video rather than just somebody playing it, right? Or different
Right.
angles.
Yeah, and that's something I'm having a great. I'm working with a wonderful woman singer, Debbie Phillips. She's from Burnsville, and she's done a lot of work in my studio, and she's doing just stuff she's always wanted to record, some straight ahead country songs, and she's involving her kids and her ex-husband's playing steel guitar, who I knew from doing a Patsy Cline show here in Asheville years ago, and that's fun, and we're bringing in some musicians, some of the stuff I can do myself, but that's really a joy for me. I have so much fun doing it.
Another compliment to you, Bruce. That was one of my favorite shows too. That Patsy Cline show was just so
Oh,
incredible.
how can you lose with Liz Aiello
Yeah. Well, no,
singing the lead? Oh boy.
no, but that was such a great show, and yeah, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I have that CD as well. And I actually, no offense to Patsy Cline, I actually get such a kick out of listening to Liz.
Yeah.
And she's just so good on that, wasn't she?
Oh,
Um,
unbelievable.
and then you did the whole show. It was a fantastic show. So talk a little bit about then, if folks are watching this, what do you want them to get out of it in terms of how Big Creek Recording Studios can help them? What are some of the things you want them to take away from it?
You want to do a recording, you want to do a video, you want to do a transmission of something like this. If you're wanting to do something on YouTube or on Facebook, I don't know if people are doing as much as that. I remember during the COVID, the height of that, people were doing regular daily performances on Facebook. But if you want to do something, you could record it, do it live, and come here and do it. It'd be great. I'd love to help you out with the production and something you could take with you and have.
Can you help people with this too? I've seen during COVID it was very popular, but if people are singing their parts or recording in different parts of the country, can you bring them together?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just you could email files. If the files are too large, you could use Google Drive or Apple iCloud. There's just so many ways to move things around and put them together. Yeah, that's so very doable.
How'd you pick up all this knowledge?
Well, when I moved here, Colleen and I didn't have a washer dryer, and I used to go to the laundromat over in Swananoa, and I brought the manual for Pro Tools, and it was a good thing. It was good not having a phone or a TV, just because I would sit there and read through the manual and learn all this stuff and absorb it, and doing it. And there's so much. People are so nice that I meet within the business, the recording business and the music business, with sharing, their information. So that's a great thing.
How about in terms of you being a manual guy or a YouTube guy? What's the best way to learn something?
Even for stuff I have the manual for, sometimes I'll go to YouTube. Like with this video program I'm using, that goes along with all the cameras and the switchers and things I'm using today. I just go to YouTube and I ask the questions. I don't even type it in. It's, use my voice. I say, how do you get this thing to do this? And there'll be like 5 different people telling you how to do it. It's amazing. There's so much information out there.
Well, it is like you said, and it's just you name the subject, and it's just you can't find it hard to believe.
Oh, you could find. I remember early. I mean, this is years ago. I remember when I had the Dixie Doughboys together. One of these gigs we got was backing a friend of ours on a soap opera. It was a spin-off off of Days of Our Lives on NBC. It was called Texas, and they had that during the height of the urban cowboy thing. It was very popular, and we got hired to play for a scene for a wedding of one of the main characters. And it was like it was amazing. We were there all day, and it went by in like 2 minutes doing the song, and but it was pretty thrilling to see the behind the scenes, the soap opera people all kind of talking about each other. Hey, you see that guy there? They're gonna fire him. He's terrible. I mean, it was like that movie Soap, if you ever saw that
Right,
one.
yeah.
With, Kevin
Sure.
Kline and Whoopi Goldberg. It was very much like that. But we did that, and that was before VCRs even. I think were available. I didn't have a copy, but Colleen went on YouTube, and I'll be darned if she didn't find all the episodes to that soap opera, and there we were. It's like, wow, incredible.
How about your own recordings? How many CDs have you put together?
I have six, I think seven, 6 or 7 CDs. I tried to slow down. I started, one of the first things I did a Beatles tribute. I did all these Beatles songs that I just love taking apart, especially ones that are very difficult to do live. Penny Lane, things, the later Beatles stuff especially, but the early stuff too. And I just did a chronological audio of their stuff. And I got friends of mine involved in it. Got Colleen to sing some harmony when I couldn't hit the high notes. And then I realized after I finished it, the sax player that came and played the solo on Lady Madonna, I gave him a copy. He said, "You don't have any George Harrison compositions on here." I was like, "Oh, he's my biggest influence." So I started a George Harrison CD. So I did the Beatles, George Harrison one, and then I did one of my 10-piece band, which I don't get to do too many gigs with that anymore, but with 4 horns, and I did a live recording. I actually hired somebody else to do the recording because I was leading the band, and it was a wedding in South Carolina, and that came out good. We did a live thing and did a lot of post-production editing with it, and then the best-selling one I have is one called Request. It has like 26, 28 songs, maybe 25. I might be exaggerating, but of me playing guitar and singing and playing upright bass and harmonica on a lot of them. And I took songs that people asked me to do all the time that I love, and that was fun to do. And then I said, I got to do another one of those. So I did one called More Requests, which has a little more production to it. I got some more instruments involved. And so I got those 3. And then I did one of the Christmas one that I gave to you,
Right.
Swinging the Season, which was Biltmore carried that for a while. They actually, one year they had their Christmas wine. They put out a wine every year.
Yeah.
And they actually had a little thing on the collar of the bottle, which had a free download of a couple of songs I did on that. And that was fun, a fun little thing. And so those are pretty much my, and now I have one called Music from Big Creek, which is I did write some songs. Had one period where I wrote about a dozen songs, and I have a lot of those, most of those on there, which is more country, western swing flavored, which are the songs, at the time that I was in the band and it seemed appropriate. So
Now,
that was good.
if folks want to see you locally, are you still playing locally?
Playing locally every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm at the Grove Park Inn with the Bees. It's a trio with myself, Byron Hedgepeth, and Bill Covington. That's why we're called the Bees. Pretty clever, huh? But we play in the Great Hall there from 7 to 10 every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I'm there solo every Sunday night, same time, 7 to 10, playing guitar and singing. And that's going just great. Had a great time last night. And then I play at Biltmore quite a bit. They're Antler Hill Village. They have bands. I go out there with my quintet, some horns usually, and keyboard player. And then the Christmas comes up pretty soon. I got the Christmas dates all booked already for the Biltmore House, which is nice. I take my 12-string guitar. You see it behind me there. I love playing that and doing all the Christmas music, which brings me back to our beginning conversation when I said it's how I learned how to sing harmonies with all the Christmas caroling we did. So
Listening to you, I get the impression it doesn't sound like you sleep a lot. It's just
there'll be time for that later.
no. I mean, you are you keep busy. Would you say?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I keep very busy, and luckily doing the things I enjoy, which every day I wake up and it's like, oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you said something else I thought was really cool before, and you mentioned a couple of times the idea of it's fun, and it's like when I see you and just marvel at the fact that you always seem to be having fun what you're doing, whether it's
Hey, if you can't have fun doing this, then you.
no, but it's true, just coming at the recording studio because I'm overwhelmed by it, as I think I told you off the air, and you're showing me 47 things happening at once, but that's where the beauty of working with, I guess, Big Creek Recording Studio, you'll do it all for soup to nuts. Is that a true
Yeah,
statement?
pretty much. Pretty much. And one thing I wanted to mention to you too was I was just got off the phone earlier with my mom up in New York. She's 94 now, and that's where I got my music. She's a singer, and she was telling me she wants me to get her a little recorder to record because she has the most unbelievable stories of
Yeah.
growing up in Manhattan. And we had showbiz ties. Our family, actually, my great grandfather was part of the Scaries, and they were acrobats. They had this whole burlesque act, and but became friendly with people like Ruta Valentino and Harry Houdini. My grandmother told me stories of Harry Houdini sitting on his lap and him doing magic tricks for her. I mean, it's just, she has these stories. My mom remembers the detail of them, and she wants me. I'm going up to visit her next month, and she wants me to bring a little recorder that she can just sit there, press a button. She can't see very well,
Right, right.
and I'm working on that now. But maybe I'll have her on your show. Do
Well,
a
no,
remote.
I'm thinking about it. I love it. Just telling
Oh, she's got
stories.
some wonderful stories. Yeah.
Wow, because just listening to it, it sounds like it would be a fascinating story.
Manhattan at one point was a small area where people that were in one business knew each other. And I mean, I have a picture on my wall here of that I found last time I visited up there of Connie Boswell, the Boswell sisters. They were like the Andrews sisters, but a little hipper. I think they were from New Orleans. And I said, wow, she's a great singer. And it's signed to my mother. And she said, oh, yeah, your grandfather worked as a detective in a hotel, and he got really friendly with her, and she gave him a picture. It's like, it's amazing. And then Colleen just sent me some things I got to look at of Rudolph Valentino. Apparently, my great grandfather was a pallbearer at his funeral.
Wow.
So we're going to check and see if we could scope it out and see the videos. She found some old videos of his funerals. So we're going to see if I can narrow it down and get some pictures of my great grandfather. And
Wouldn't that be incredible? Bruce, if folks want to reach you, and I'll ask you to show that little thing you put up before, best way to reach Bruce Lang at Big Creek Recording Studios is what?
just give me a call, and text me at Great Barnersville telephone number here, 626-2626. And that's 828 area code, of course.
But if you would put it up, you showed it on the screen
Yeah, I'll
before.
put it
You
up on the screen here.
make it official. Okay, there you go.
There you
So the recommendation, we'll just keep it up for a second, Bruce, but
Sure.
Big Creek Recording Studio, you name it, if it has something to do with the recording, I'll strongly recommend Bruce Lang, and you have his phone number there, and he'll get you squared away. And so, Bruce, you can take that down now, but thank you for showing that.
Okay.
And that's, by the way, doing it all. Bruce will help you design the graphics. You name it, Bruce can do it. One of the favorite
And if-
projects, you name
and
it,
if things-
Bruce. One of
And
my
if things
favorite.
go wrong, I even have things like this to put up.
Well, my favorite Bruce Lang thing I used to watch, you would post on Facebook, and you would post the funniest things. But remember when Christy, you do these great pictures of you with or Christy and all these kinds of things.
Oh,
Yeah, and just because that's another little project you just did for a friend of mine. He even did. He's good. You're good with Photoshop as well. Is that correct?
yeah, it's very similar to the video editing things. So it's kind of some parallels there, and I'm not quite as up on it, but it's fun to do. I remember I've been playing around with that a lot. So
Okay. Well, I encourage folks, if you want to know anything about recording or have Bruce do some recording for you, check out Big Creek Recording Studio. As always, Bruce, it's a real pleasure to have you on board. I look forward to seeing you maybe in person sometime in the next couple of years.
I hope so. Be great.
Okay. This is great, Bruce. So I'm going to sign off.